Hello and welcome to Get Rich Slow, the podcast that challenges the conventional get rich quick ideology and instead explores what authentic success really means and how you can achieve it. I'm Hannah Martin. I'm the founder of Talent Ladies Club, and I'm joined today by Debra Joy, a leadership coach. Hi, Debra.
Hi, Hannah. Good to see you.
And you, thank you so much for joining me. Before we talk about, and I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about today, but before we get to talking about that, can I just ask you what success means to you?
Sure. Success for me is when I can be love and spread love, when I know I can make a positive impact in someone's life or in the planet, whether it's a big way or a small way, and when I can have deep and meaningful work but still be in a state where I can treat myself lightly and laugh.
Excellent. I love that. That's all great. I totally agree with all of that. Can I ask what your background is? So you're a leadership coach. Obviously, that's quite a loose term. So what is it that you do? And briefly, how did you end up being a leadership coach? What qualifies you for that or gives you the experience for it?
Okay, great. Well, I've been doing it for the past 15 years. Over 15 years now. And I work primarily with entrepreneurs, executives, and creatives who have really a mission-based business or project they're working on. So just coaching doesn't actually qualify you to be a coach. So prior to coaching, I had worked in several companies, but I also co-founded 3 businesses and a nonprofit with people who to this day are still my great friends. I have a master's in leadership and training. And I am a somatic experiencing practitioner, and that's a therapeutic method for healing trauma and excess stress in the nervous system.
Excellent, thank you. So obviously highly experienced and highly qualified. So we're going to talk today about trauma and our nervous system and how that shows up in us as business people. So can I just ask, as a starting point, how does our nervous system work?
Yeah, that's a big question. It's kind of nice to think of it as like how parents are with their kids, right? So as a parent, you want your kid to have a good life. You want them to get good sleep. You want them to have friends and eat well. But your primary concern is their safety. So if the house is on fire, you don't care if they're well rested. You don't care if they've eaten well or they've got good friends. You want them out of that house. So that's how our nervous system works. So it wants us generally to be in a state where we can engage with people, where we can eat food, where we can be rested. And if there's danger, it wants us to respond in an instant. So that's how it works basically. Like there's a little bit of a seesaw between these different aspects. The sympathetic system gets us revved up, ready to go. The parasympathetic is more of a calming, able to engage state.
So we need to balance them, I would imagine, because if we're too chilled all the time, we won't really get things done. And I'd imagine there are times where we need to kind of be energetic. But I guess as a majority, we probably want to stay in the calmer state, don't we? Is that healthy?
Yeah, it is definitely. If we are too much in a sympathetic state, we can think of it as revved, right? If you're revved when you don't need to be, it would be like having your car in neutral and gunning the gas all the time. It's not going to be great for your engine, right? The car is not going to perform well. So if when you're meant to be calm, you're actually able to be calm, that makes you more prepared for when you need that energy to be able to access it. It makes you more resilient. So when you're faced with a challenge, but not just a challenge, an opportunity, right? Then you're able to rise to it because you've got the energy, you've got the oomph for it. You're not already burned out inside.
So what happens then if we are revved up too much of the time? Is that when burnout happens? What kind of the consequences? What might we notice in ourselves might be a key that's happening?
Well, long before we realize we're burned out and we have to stop what we're doing, we can notice little things like we are easily irritated. Like maybe you're trying to get some work done and the kids are being loud, and instead of like, hey guys, can you take it to another room? You're like, hey, stop it. And think, oh my God, I hate that I did that. That's your nervous system responding before your adult brain can take charge. So your nervous system, your sympathetic system, it's really on defense. So when it's in a defensive mode, you don't feel safe. You may not even be aware that you don't feel safe, but you won't be behaving in a way you like. So you might be hypervigilant. It might feel like everything is urgent. Gotta get this done, gotta get this done, gotta get this done. And if you weren't in that state, you might realize it doesn't all have to get done right now. And if you could calm down, you could actually get it all done in a different state. But it's that revved up feeling, I gotta get it done. I'm snapping at people. You might have trouble sleeping. It could become health disorders, like you might start to have digestive problems. Mm-hmm. So it shows up in lots of different areas. And if it's just one, you tend to not notice it. You're going to push it aside. If you start to notice little clusters of things, it's something to really pay attention to.
And how can that, obviously that's not good for our health. It won't be good for our relationships with other people. But how does it specifically influence our actions, particularly our actions in business? How does that affect how we are as business leaders?
Well, it happens a lot in business, because our business, we have such a hyped up culture around business in general. There's so much pressure on quarterly returns and just getting things done right away. And so as leaders, if we're in a revved up state, we're going to create that condition amongst our people. So what happens as humans is our systems are regulating with one another. Like even you and I now, as we're connecting, as I see your facial expression, as I see you nod, that tells my nervous system that we're in sync. And so it helps me settle. Mm-hmm. If you were feeling super stressed right now and I felt pressured to respond, if I had to get the answer right, I would be in a very different state and my breathing would change and I would feel nervous. And what would happen is it would actually limit my access to my more creative thinking, to my problem solving, to my ability to plan, and even my ability to engage with other people because I would be in this revved up state. So it affects everybody's performance when the leader is revved up. It kind of trickles through. So as leaders, the more regulated we can be, and it's not just calm, but the more engaged we can be with our life, the more present we can be, and the more we can notice when we're revved. Even just noticing it like, I'm feeling revved, and I can talk about things we can do if we want to get out of that state, but just being able to notice it can really help because it is such a constant happening under our conscious level, but it's affecting everything.
I think what's really interesting, you're talking there about, having access to creative thinking. And that's something, when I trained many years ago as a therapist and we learned about sort of fight or flight and your higher cortex. And actually, when you are in a state like that, you really cannot think clearly, can you? You don't have access to quite a lot of your brain, in effect. And if you are chronically in that state, and that must mean that actually you aren't able to make the right decisions for your business, or you aren't even able to evaluate your business properly, are you? You're going to make knee-jerk reaction decisions.
Yeah. Fear-based decisions are rarely the right ones, unless you're truly in danger. And that's what happens is when people get afraid, they'll make desperate decisions, and it's partly why we are so easily sold things we don't need. We're in a little bit of a stressed out state. We feel like I'm not keeping up. I don't belong. I have to do more. I have to be more. I will buy what someone's selling me because I think it will calm my fears.
Well, you hope. Hope.
Yes.
For so many poor decisions we all make. Like we're all human. I certainly make them. I always hope when I buy a pair of jeans, they're going to make my legs long and skinny.
Where are those jeans?
I know, I'm a sucker for the advertising though.
There's one thing I didn't mention that I just want to throw in. One of the signs that your nervous system's revved up and there could be trauma is perfectionism. You feel that you're never getting it right. You've got to keep tweaking things. It always has to be perfect. And one sign is you feel you're not even good enough to be a perfectionist.
Okay, that's a sub-level of, there's perfectionism. And then people who can't even be a perfectionist.
Not even good enough to do that. Yeah.
That's definitely something to watch out for. I want to take you back slightly to something that you mentioned earlier, and it's the hype culture. And you talk about kind of a lot of the messaging that surrounds dating. And to be honest, that's a reason that inspired this podcast and why it's called Get Rich Slow, because we do live in, and I think this message has always been there, but I think with social media, it's much more prevalent today. We live in a society that that worships success, or seems to sort of certainly promote it and value it. And success as often is material. You know, I love what you talked about, your version of what success was. And actually, everyone I've talked about what success is a highly personal thing. And it's related to self-satisfaction and the achievements you make in the world. But what we see on social media and other places is success being measured in wealth and wealth acquisition and power, as a very specific kind of power that comes through wealth and that kind of success. Does that have an effect on what we're talking about now in our nervous system, and then how it influences us as business people?
Oh, absolutely. We all have unconscious conditioning that's running the show, you know, and a lot of it comes from our childhood. So if your parents were caught up in that culture and you saw or heard messages that you got to get rich, you got to get ahead, you know, then that's embedded in the way you will behave and the way you'll think. But even as adults, we don't realize how influenced we are by all the messages we're getting. You know, our brains are picking up millions of messages a second. It has to filter out a bunch. But it's going to actually resonate. If I'm afraid and I'm seeing a message about how I actually need a 7-figure business or an 8-figure business, even though I kind of am totally content with what I have, there's something that's going to hook me in. I need to do more. I need to do more. And we get addicted to more. And that's a big part of the problem where we are in our whole planet, you know, not just in business.
And that leads me really nicely to another question I wanted to ask you, and that is about destination addiction, what that is and why it's so damaging to us personally. And I think definitely that whole where we are now, and that, you know, like for me, I remember like when it was like, you know, this whole thing about having a 6-figure business, you know, and I worked hard and I got there, and instead of being happy when I got there, suddenly people talking about 7-figure businesses, and like, I can't even celebrate the achievement I've got because I already feel inadequate now. So what is destination addiction, and why is it dangerous, and how can we avoid it?
Yeah. Okay. Well, your example's so great because I just thought of like, imagine you've just had a child and you're so happy with your child and you want to pour your love into it, enjoy it. And people say, when you're having your next kid, well, now you got 2 at about 3 and you're like, can't I be happy with my child? You know, it's that same thing. So destination addiction, which is a great term, I wish I knew who came up with it, is that constant propulsion towards the end game. And it's often, you know, we see these people who are serial entrepreneurs and running marathons and doing all these amazing things, and we hold them up as where we all should be or where we want to be. What we don't realize is that often that constant drive is actually driven by an underwriting trauma or an unresolved trauma. Because there could be at some point in that person's life, maybe when they were young, they went into a freeze mode, which is a normal response to being overwhelmed. But it's super uncomfortable. It's a near-death experience. And the nervous system doesn't want to go back there. And one of the ways it will resolve that is to stay in motion all the time. And in 2009, there's an interesting Harvard paper that came out about the dark side of goal setting. And it said when we're constantly focused on the result, almost at any cost, it leads to unethical behaviors at times. It definitely can destroy relationships, and it leads to worse performance in an organization. So if you keep focusing only on the goal, on the result, on the next milestone, and not the culture and how people are performing together, you'll actually get not only a decreased culture in your company and people won't want to work there, but the performance, the output won't be as good.
I think there's several things that come out of that are really interesting. And that sort of, you're so focused on the goal, there's a temptation then to maybe let values that you have go if the goal overrides and the achievement of that. But I think also something that I'm very aware of is that, you know, it's very easy to kind of go, well, you know, when I have a holiday or when I reach this thing, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be happy at this point. And so first of all, well, there's no guarantee that's going to be the case. You know, like people go, oh, if I lose 2 stone, I'll be happy. Or, you know, you don't know. Fundamentally, you're still going to be the same person if you're 2 stone lighter. But also, you know, every second we have is precious, isn't it? It's our life, you know. We don't just live for the 2 weeks holiday we might have a year, or we don't live for the weekend. We have to love the bit in between. We have to love or find something to like about the Monday morning when you're getting up. And for me, if you can make a Monday morning feel special and feel good and appreciate that, you're truly rich, aren't you? Because then when you get the goals, that's the cherry on the cake. But that shouldn't be everything, should it?
Oh, absolutely. Because we spend most of our time in pursuit of a goal, not getting the goal. The goal is it's a moment and then it's over. It's just one more moment. So what you're saying is so bang on. Like, we don't remember our life, you know, chronologically, all the things that happened. We remember moments, right? Like, I don't remember, oh, yesterday, what time did I wake up? And then what foot touched the ground first? You know, it's just like, what was a highlight moment? Oh, when my husband and I went for this walk and it was sunny. It's those moments, right? So I completely agree with you that focus on the result puts us in the state of living in the gap, which is this constant state of being dissatisfied with where I am now because I see where I want to be. I have this image of how great that's going to be, you know, one day when. But I feel where I am now, and that gap in between can feel so big that there's just this constant dissatisfaction. Now, some people will say, use that as your guide to move you forward. What I like to do is get people to really sink in to what they think that result's going to give them. Who will they be able to be when they get there? How are they going to feel? How will they treat themselves? How are they going to treat others and their community? Great. What are the simple things you can start doing now to be that? So you start resonating with the person you'll be in your goal. And you'll find when you do that, you start achieving your goals in very different ways.
That's a really interesting way to kind of flip it around, isn't it? Because I can see that there could be an element of imposter syndrome. It's like, well, okay, when I grow a 7-figure business, I'm going to be a successful person. I will feel successful. But there's no guarantee that because when you get there, someone else has made 8 figures. So there's no guarantee you're going to feel successful. But and I love that idea that isn't it better to aspire to think about what is it that you want to feel? What is that the aim of the emotion in that goal, or the personality qualities that you think that goal is going to give you? And if you can get those right now and live them every day rather than wait 5 years and then maybe feel it then for that moment, feel it every day for 5 years. But then also I love how actually that kind of goal takes care of itself if you get those things right now.
Right. It's never about the goal. I'm big on people setting goals and having goals and working with them in a rich way. But if you think of the hero's journey, you know, Joseph Campbell's work on the hero's journey, that's at the core of most great movies. You know, people, there's some kind of call where they have to change and they have to push themselves. And it's like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, right? She's got to go through all these trials and tribulations to find her way home. The goal was getting home. But when she got home, she was the same. She just had this lovely new appreciation for the people in her life, you know, or Rocky, and Rocky won, right? He wanted to win the championship and he fought so hard and he trained, and I can hear the music playing in my mind as I think about it. It was an exciting movie. He did not win the championship, but in pursuit of that goal, he became someone who knew he wasn't a bum and he was valuable and worthy. So pursuing a goal, absolutely valuable. But how you pursue it is what matters.
Definitely. I had a thought then, but I hate that happened. It's completely gone. But it is absolutely important that the pursuit of that goal is important. And we don't go from just literally setting kind of goal after goal, because what happens, and I remembered it now. So I remember reading The Road Less Travelled many years ago, and he made a really interesting point that all the fairy tales and love stories ends up with they lived happily ever after, you know, like the prince meets the princess and they marry. And so, well, actually, that's the beginning of the story, because we assume that, and it very much relates to this kind of goal setting. We assume that the moment that we hit that goal, magically, we don't really think what happens the next moment after that goal is hit. Everything's going to be sorted. But actually, that's not the case. And there's still work beyond that goal. But it can almost be a kind of deflation to us, because if we've built ourselves up that goal is the wedding is the moment, the goal is the moment, and then we're going to live happily ever after, but actually we don't, because every day needs work, and every day we need to kind of take care of ourselves. So it's selling a kind of false dream in a way, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You know, and that whole, it narrows our focus to become so goal centered, right? And when our focus gets narrowed, it's part of that sort of traumatic way of being in life. Like everything's narrowed down and tight. When we can have a more expansive view, you can even feel it like in your nervous system. If you turn your head and look around, your body will naturally take a deeper breath. You're in a different state than when you're focused on that one thing. It's just totally different energy. And you're right in that so many people put their energy into the one thing and not beyond it. Like a wedding's perfect, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to get married and I'm going to put so much energy into that wedding. It would be such a beautiful thing if people put half that energy into the marriage. You know, it would be lovely. And when I talk to my clients about pursuit of things, I say, getting the goal isn't going to change the quality of your life as much as your habits. The quality of your habits will determine the quality of your life. So if you have a beautiful wedding, but you don't daily recommit to your vows and be kind to your partner and loving and turn towards them in conflict rather than away, the beauty of that wedding doesn't matter.
Mm. Absolutely. And it comes back to that, it being more about how do you want to feel? How do you want your every day, rather than do you want to have a perfect wedding and a perfect marriage? But it's how do you want to feel every day? Because if you're in a relationship and you want to feel loved and you want to love and you do those things, your marriage will be better because you'll be more respectful of each other's feelings. But if it's just focused on the big wedding, and then you won't kind of be aware of actually what does a marriage look like to me, or what does a successful business, now I've established it, look and feel like? Yeah,
that's so true. And what I find interesting is when I have several clients who they've achieved massive things, you know, things I would personally never in my life be able to achieve, you know, just huge success. And they come to work with me because they're not satisfied. You know, like I got all this stuff and is this all there is? I thought this would make me happy. And they think maybe they need to set a new goal, you know, a bigger goal. And we'll just look at, well, what actually does happiness mean to you? What would that actually feel like? And for some people who've been on the treadmill of going and going and going and achieving, contentment at first feels really unsettling. They can think they're depressed. I'm flat. I've lost my ambition. And so it's going through that discomfort. And when they're through it, they'll realize, I'm actually quite content. I'm much more able to engage with my kids. I'm noticing like I want to be with my friends more. But that's a real shift in their nervous system from being on all the time, ready to go. It's an adjustment.
It is, and that's interesting. That is a word I use a lot because I came to realise in my own life that actually it's contentment. We talk about happiness, but happiness is actually a spike. It's a momentary, fleeting thing, and actually, it's a kind of like a high rev thing, isn't it? It's a positive high rev thing, but it should be quite fleeting because we can't maintain happiness. But since it becomes our baseline, it's no longer happiness. But it's that middle ground, that contentment that actually most of us really want. To have a good day every day, it's brilliant. Better than having a brilliant day and then one day, then 100 miserable days.
Right.
And it's that sort of that contentment that we aspire to, which I think also comes into the regulation of a nervous system, because surely that a contentment is then that kind of calmer nervous system with occasional peaks of kind of, you know, oh, we've had a really brilliant day, or, you know, we've won that thing, but I can still come down to a kind of a good base level. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfect. You know, we do want that excitement, right? I mean, we watch thriller movies or read thriller books. We like the unknown. We want that excitement. We want to be able to run if we're being chased. We want all that capacity, but it's not healthy to live there. And I don't think any of us really want to live there. So We need to learn what safety feels like. And our body, our nervous system has neuroception, which is a level of perception below our level of awareness. So your nervous system is always scanning for danger, even when you're not aware of it. So how you might notice it is sometimes if your fridge is making a noise or there's like a loud air conditioner, you're having a conversation, you don't notice it. But then it goes off and you might notice, ooh, oh, that's good. You noticed when it's gone.
Yeah.
So you weren't aware of the noise, but your nervous system was. So it had you a little tense, a little braced, a little ready, because it's like, I don't know what that noise is, but I got to be on guard. And then it's gone and you can settle. There are so many little triggers in many of our lives, especially in business. You know, if I'm attached to my phone and I'm constantly being pinged, every one of those pings is a trigger to my nervous system. We need times where we just turn it off, put it away, out of sight. We need to go walk in nature. We need to be able to look around and see to the distance. All of those things tell our bodies, I'm safe.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think having that, we talked about that baseline, if you have that trauma and if you are caught up in destination addiction, it's a bit like you're driving in a car, all you're doing is looking ahead. There's beautiful scenery out the side, but you can't see it. And the danger is that if you put so much stock on that goal and you get that goal and then you realize that you are the same person, which is probably why you end up needing to replace it by another goal, because that baseline doesn't exist. That contentment isn't there.
Right.
That sort of being able to come down to that calm state is not there for you. It's not available to you because you don't know what that feels like and you haven't practiced it. And that's when you can, I guess, end up with, okay, so I've achieved that goal. I've got 6 figures, let's say, to use the example we have been, but I still feel like me and I still feel inadequate. Maybe if I get to 7 figures and then I get there, maybe if I get to 8, but at no point does someone get that kind of that, that calmness. But that calmness, in order to feel that then, it would have to be there before, wouldn't it? It's not something magically available. Right.
It's very rarely something outside of ourselves that gives us that, and there's that dopamine addiction, right? More, I need more, but we end up experiencing the law of diminishing returns. We go for more and more, but we're satisfied less and less. So we think we need more. It's like scrolling on your phone. Right? At first, like, oh, that's interesting. That's fun. And then it's like, I've been here half an hour. It's not that fun anymore. Like you're just scrolling and scrolling. It's that addiction to dopamine, but we can deplete it by just going and going and going. So contentment is taking breaks from those things and really like letting our dopamine level build up again to our normal baseline so that we actually have the motivation to go do things that we're interested in. And that constant pursuit is just really wearing down our nervous system. So we don't have the energy we need when we need it.
So how can someone, if someone's listening to this and they're kind of thinking, some of this sounds familiar to me, what signs might they look out for that perhaps there are changes they can make? And what were some of the changes you might recommend someone does?
Okay. I'm a super big fan of start with something super simple, especially as women entrepreneurs. We are fantastic at just piling more work on ourselves. Like when people say, take a self-care day, we will make a list of like, I got to go to spa, do this and this and this. And it's like, oh my God, I don't have the time. So our self-care becomes like something we jam in. So I think first you said what to look for. So do I feel like everything's urgent? Do I need to get it all done? Is my to-do list just growing all the time and I can't keep up? Do I literally feel anxious? Do I feel anxious and stressed a lot? And I can give a lot of reasons why. I'm busy, my practice is so busy, this it makes me feel stressed. I will apply reasons to it. The reasons don't matter. Do you feel stressed? A lot, Am I irritated quickly? Do I behave in a way that I later don't feel good about? And do I feel hypervigilant? Like this needs to be perfect. I need to get that done. My house needs to be clean. So I'm very controlling. Do I need to be in control of everything? Look for digestive issues, sleep issues. It could even just be a general sense of malaise, or procrastination. There's things I want to do or have to do, but I just keep putting them off. That can be a sign of dysregulation as well. So what someone does It will be different for everybody, but there's a few things I would recommend. Where to begin? Okay, something that everybody could do during the day, and I could actually have people do it along with us right now. Before you sit down in front of your computer, you could just feel your feet on the ground. And don't think about your feet. Right now, actually feel your feet. Notice any sensations in them. So maybe they feel tingly or numb. Maybe they're warm or cool. And as you feel your feet, notice that the floor is supporting your feet. And just notice what happens in your body when you do that. And then I want you to feel your ass in the chair. And just really notice the chair supporting you. And with your next couple of breaths, just exhaling through your nose, allow your body to settle down into that support that's there for you. And you notice what that does. So by the way, I call that FAB, just so people can remember. Feet, ass, breath. So you feel your feet on the ground, you feel your ass in the chair, and with some exhales, you let your body settle down. And the reason I like that, it's quick. You could be doing it in a boardroom meeting where you're feeling really stressed and no one has to know you're doing it. And it tells your body immediately, I'm safe. Because we are so often up in our thoughts. Rather than listening, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say next while you're talking. Or you're saying something that's triggered me and I'm trying to figure out what that means to me. So my energy's all up here. I forget that there's something supporting my being. When I bring my attention down and I actually feel inside my body what that's like, I shift into interoception. And interoception is just sensing what's going on in your body. And when you have interoception, you actually deactivate the brain's default mode, which is for the mind to be wandering. So you can't be doing both at the same time. So it's just a very quick, easy meditation, but nobody knows you're doing it. You could do that 100 times a day. Find things in your day that will trigger you to do it. Like find reminders. You could do it when you're driving, every time you hit a stop sign or every time you're at a red light. So there's lots of times you do it. And every time you do it, you'll be interrupting the rev in your nervous system or the shallow breathing. You'll bring your body into a state of presence.
I love that. It's really powerful, and it reminds me actually of something different but similar in a way. I used to get really bad panic attacks, and I had them until I was in my early 30s when I qualified as a therapist, and we learned a technique called 7-11 breathing. So you breathe in for 7 and out for 11, you count it. And I think two things. One is the regulation of the breathing and the kind of the right kind of balance of breath, and then the counting. Very similar to what it's about taking you out of your head onto that. It completely eradicated my panic attacks.
Is that amazing?
Yes, it is. And it's a tool. If I ever feel, it's very rarely now where I will feel a kind of sense of panic, I just do that and it stops. But I think there's a more important message above all of that, is that we don't have to be hostages to how we think and feel. We do have a choice, don't we? And,
yes.
We understand that there are physical habits. We might smoke, we might bite our nails, and we know that's habitual. We didn't do it, we started doing it, and with some effort, we can stop doing it. But what we don't understand is that our thoughts and our feelings are as habitual as them. And we don't have to stay, as I say, a hostage or a victim to it. If we do have a certain thought process that makes us feel something, we can change that, can't we? And to me, I find it really empowering to know that is possible. And there are strategies like you've just shared. But it is absolutely possible to change how we think and feel, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I like what you said, like interrupting, because we do get in these patterns of thinking. And then we get told, well, change your thoughts. Well, if I'm in this negative loop, my brain is full of thoughts. So then I try stuffing in these positive thoughts to push them out. My brain is just full of these combating thoughts, right? I'm still up in my head. When I bring my attention down into my body, for a moment, thinking stops. Mm-hmm. Then I can actually access more positive thinking because I'm no longer in fight or flight. When I'm in fight or flight, I can't access positive thinking, not authentically. So if I try to talk myself into feeling good when my body's revved up, that disconnect, that dysregulation becomes more profound. And I'll feel worse about myself. I'm trying to tell myself, I'm confident and strong and I feel good. And my body's like, no, I'm not. I feel terrible. There's such a disconnect. So if I can first just feel safe, I don't even have to feel good, but if I can feel safe. And in that breathing technique that you learned, like how amazing to have control over a panic attack, which is absolute loss of control. It's the scariest thing to go through. To go from that with simple breathing to totally feeling in control and safe, right? It brings you back to feeling safe. Panic is, I'm not safe. I don't even know why, but I'm not safe. It's kind of the ultimate. And the important part is that nice long exhale. So it's why either your breathing technique or with the fab, the exhale, you're not focusing on your inhale. It's just exhaling and letting your body settle as you exhale. And safety is key. And so often our workplaces are not actually safe environments for us. You know, we feel so competitive. I got to keep on top to keep my job. I've got to be at my best every day. No one's at their best every day. That nonstop pressure makes us go faster, and it leads to those potentially unethical, but at least personally damaging behaviors.
Absolutely. And I think also what's really important is we have to have compassion for ourselves, first of all. We have to treat ourselves well, because if we are not feeling safe and we don't look after ourselves, how can we give safety to others? How can we treat others well and protect them? How we are acting around others and how you make them feel is a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. So I think it's really important to go inwards and the work you've been talking about here and ground ourselves first of all before we can be a better person for anyone else, be a good leader, be a good employee.
Absolutely. And you know it as a parent, right? You might say all the right things to your kid and they're actually going to respond to how you're feeling. You know, and so it will be the same in the workplace. It's going to be the same with your customers. You know, if you're saying something that sounds really good, but they can feel something's off. There's something not totally aligned. You're stressed out. You need this sale. They're going to feel that and it can repel them. But if you can be regulated and you can feel good, that actually helps regulate other people. And we all unconsciously want to be around that. We want to be around people who are grounded and kind and generous and comfortable in their own skin. We like that. We feel more comfortable. We can trust them.
Definitely. And we kind of hope someone's going to rub off on us. It's like, you know, if I spend time with you, I'm going to feel like how you make me feel. So thank you so much. There is so much knowledge and wisdom that you have shared. And I love the fab tip. Before we go, are there any do you have any top kind of emotional health tips for business owners other than fab, which is brilliant? But yeah, if someone's thinking like some top line tips about how they can manage and regulate their own emotions and nervous system and be better business leaders.
I think one thing that's nice to do is get really clear on why you want the goal you're going for. Really know it. And it's all about feeling. We only go after a goal because of how we believe it will make us feel, like we've talked about, right? I only go get a sandwich because I'm hungry or I want to numb some emotions. Like everything's a goal about feeling. Get super clear on how you think you'll feel, how you think you'll be. And I would say start your day every day with a 1-minute meditation connecting with that version of you. Just like imagine putting that on. What would it be like to walk in that person's skin, to stand as that person, to treat your employees as that person and your customers, and then set an intention that day to be that as many times as you can. And if you can write it down, like write the intention down so that at night you can check, when was I that? Maybe it was only once. That's enough. Maybe it didn't happen at all. And you're like, okay, I'm going to try tomorrow. Again, come back to what you said. Be compassionate. Change is hard. Change is really hard. So be loving and compassionate because your inner critical voice actually puts you in fight or flight. So when you think, oh, I didn't do it, just like, okay, I'm mad at myself. That's cool. I'm going to do it again tomorrow. But the more you can imagine and feel that version of you and make a commitment to be it at least once today and maybe twice tomorrow, you will start achieving your goal in a very different way because you'll be living it.
And I think what's really important, and I think is really heartening for people to know, is that our brain isn't fixed. And our brain is constantly pruning the parts of the things that we don't use. And so the more that you practice, as Debra's saying, the more that you practice that, the more you actually generally become that, because your brain will kind of like promote that connection. It will prune off all the connections, the old habits, the thoughts and feelings that you had, as you use less. So you will actually become more of that person, won't you?
Absolutely. That was such a great way to describe it. That's exactly what happens. And it's so different from fake it till you make it. Right? You're really feeling this version of yourself that wants to be expressed in the world. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the goal. And so you're just allowing that to happen a little bit in your day now.
Definitely. Thank you so much. I could talk to you all day, but I'm aware
It's such a pleasure. You're so fun.
Yeah. How can people find you if they want to connect with you or see more of what you do or work with you? Where can they go?
Okay. My website is debrajoy.me. And I am on Instagram as DebraJoy_coach.
And just to, can you just let me know the spelling of Debra? Because obviously there are different ways to spell it. So
Spelt like zebra, DebraJoy.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Debra. It was a joy.
Thanks, Hannah. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure to talk. Really pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.